It's Down to Business with Jack Miller. Forget what they teach you in school. This is real life. Not Wall Street, but Main Street. A real show on what's really involved with starting and running a business, with all the ups and downs. Our guests will answer your questions and provide you with valuable information. Stay tuned and join in the conversation. Call us at 305-541-2350. Follow us on Facebook at Jack Miller Down to Business or on Twitter at HJackMiller1.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Thanks for sticking with us, everyone. This is Jack Miller. Glad to have you with us. Ari, thanks for sticking around. Todd, thanks for sticking around. I was negligent. I always comment about Wanda's I'm thinking the right word, delicious smell. Aroma. That's
aromatic.
Nice.
Yeah.
Aromatic. So I came in the studio today. And,
yes, I left you some smells in there.
It smelled so good, Wanda.
Good. So
Todd,
wish you were here.
Todd,
I wish I were there too. and by the way, there's nothing better than pleasant smelling people. And on the flip side, we all have run into the people with BO from time to time, and there's really
none of that here.
Much more of a turnoff. So
Todd,
thank you, Wanda, for doing your share in making our lives more pleasant.
Hey, I do what I can. doTERRA.
Maybe I'll get lucky.
Jack and Ari, this is Todd, and I wanted to ask you a couple questions based on that very informative and excellent segment you just did. Say I had a company or anyone out there who has a company, and they're going along, and they do realize, in their daily business that something is amiss, something might be wrong. What are the actual steps that you would advise someone to take if they do realize something? I mean, should they be seeking counsel from a consultant or an advisor? And if so, how often? Should they have a second opinion? Who should that be? And what should they do immediately when they sense that they might be getting into trouble?
Todd, I'll jump in, and Ari can jump in as well after. Look, I think the first thing they have to do is identify the problem and take their head out of the sand and make changes. Hopefully, before it becomes a major problem, you could make small directional changes and they could deal with it themselves. But they have to think like an outsider would. They have to reevaluate the business, their financials, their product line, customer service. They have to reevaluate everything and jump on it. Again, if they can't do that, then they need to go to a professional, whether it be an attorney or a company like Ari and I have. But they need to ultimately bring in somebody who can make the changes that are necessary if they can't make it. Now, if it's something like everything's going fine and the bank calls their loan, or there's what I call a disaster that happens quick, a lot of times people make the mistake of trying to handle it themselves. And we did this ourselves. I'm guilty of it. When the economy went bad, I guess about 7 years ago, when the market melted down, we tried to handle it and we tried to make nice with the banks, and the banks milked us dry. Really, we should have gone to a professional up front, and we should have taken a much tougher hand in negotiations, because the reality is your creditors will milk you dry until there's nothing left. And they don't care about you. You need to be selfish. You need to, as we said before, stockpile cash. And there's a divergence of interest between your interests and everyone else's interests.
I would add one more thing to that, and it was great, by the way, what you said. The most important thing is about any turnaround situation.
Ari, let me interrupt. You don't have to be nice to me because we're on the air. No,
well, everyone's listening. Mom might be listening for all I know. Okay, so the most important thing regarding any one of these situations is the focus of the owner. When you're going into business and you have to get up in the morning and drive to work, and there's going to be problems. There's going to be vendors looking for money. Sales are going to be off. Customers are going to call with complaints. There's a tendency to not go, to sleep in, to go somewhere else. To not do what it needs to be done, to not take the phone call, to not return the email. As hard as it is, that's the exact opposite of what you should do. When we were going through our struggles, I accredited me, at least for my own self, with one thing. I used to say, sometimes I cry myself to sleep, sometimes I drink myself to sleep, but in the morning I'm ready to fight again. And that's the type of thing you need. You need to have the fire in your belly where you're willing to go make the tough decisions, take the tough challenges, and you have to recognize it's going to be hard. That's okay. It's not a failure on your part. Life is hard. Business is hard. But the tough people survive, and you got to get tough.
I
agree.
I
mean, in my experience, I think that the two qualities that lead to failure most often are hubris and complacency. And I think that across the board, I think that it's very difficult, once someone builds something up, pretty much with their bare hands and it succeeds, it's not as easy to sort of take a step back, look at things and say, this isn't going as well as it used to be. People are optimistic. People put their heart and soul into creating something. And if, I feel like they would be optimistic if they skipped a beat or if there were a couple quarters that weren't as good as the previous few years. And so, they would will it to succeed at that point or keep doing what they did to make it successful, even though a different tack might, be better at that moment.
Todd, you're 100% right. A lot of times they just don't want to give up the reins. They don't want to face reality that things change. The markets change. The public demand changes. They get complacent. Their ego gets too big. The payroll gets bloated. Whatever it is, things change. And you need to reinvent yourself all the time. Every day, a company and an executive and an owner needs to reinvent himself and ask himself, what can we do better? How can we improve it? What's wrong with it? But really, honestly, deal with it, not stick your head in the sand.
Okay.
I
agree with.
Just my thought on it. Just my thought.
But I think where Todd was going with this, if you can't do it or if you find yourself not doing it, you need to bring in help. You need to pick a partner, an advisor. It could be us or a company like us, or it could be a trusted friend, a mentor, someone that you can talk to that's going to be honest with you, that's going to tell you the straight truth, whether you like it or not, and that you're going to respect enough to listen to.
And I'll just add, who does not have a vested stake in the business. Don't ask one of your creditors. Don't ask someone on the board. You can ask them, but they're going to have a selfish point of view. So you have to bring in someone, I think, from the outside. I don't know if you agree with that, Aaron.
Yeah, no, 100%, absolutely. But one thing, too, one of the things that we didn't talk about is what happens if you're in partnership. If you're in a partnership with other people, especially if it's an equal partnership, this becomes a slippery slope. This could be a blessing or it could be a curse. Sometimes when you have a partnership and things go bad, you could either rally around each other and lift each other up when the one's down, or you could start pointing fingers. I would caution everyone, the thing that's been great in our partnership is we never pointed fingers. We always rallied around each other. And the partnerships where they do start pointing fingers, imagine if you have creditors at the gate and you have losing clients and you have problems, and then all of a sudden the partners start fighting. Then it becomes so much more difficult to do anything.
No, Ari's right. When you have partnership problems, it never ends good. It's disaster. And my advice would be, just like a marriage, even if you don't agree 100% with your partner, sometimes keep your mouth shut and go with what your partner wants for the sake of peace.
I've been doing that for 20 years.
I know. Well, you survived. We both survived. But then again, I moved to Florida, so I don't know if it became easier. I drove myself out of the state. But Ari's right. The partnerships, I see a lot of businesses go down the tubes. In fact, a quick story about it. About 3 years ago, I represented ownership in a approximately 500-unit apartment building in, I don't want to name the state, but in the Midwest. And it was a very savable situation. Fannie Mae called the loan. They ran into problems. Ultimately, they lost the property. They gave up because there were 3 partners and they were all fighting, and they just gave up. And it was sad. It was a 500-unit building, beautiful cash flow property, but their fighting caused so many problems they couldn't overcome themselves with I'm right and you're wrong, and they were more interested in I'm right and you're wrong than in saving the property. So partnerships can be a challenge sometimes. But along those lines, I think you need, and I would caution everyone, you need good partnership agreements up front. to protect yourself.
The one thing we talked about, Jack, but we didn't really go into depth on, is how do you deal with creditors? How do you deal with when the bank's calling and they say you got to pay us off by 2 months or else, or they say we want to increase the payments when you can barely make the payments they have now?
Well, look, I'll give you my opinion. You have to look. First of all, I have to tell you, and I tweeted yesterday because I was dealing with another client and I was frustrated. When you see a bank advertise, you're more than a number to us. We care about you. The bank is full of run. The bank is full of horse manure. I'll tell you what happened to us, and this is a real life story. When the market went bad, we had probably 28, 29 million in debt. We had maybe we had 15 banks. And they put us in default. And what we did was we tried to be nice, and we thought our 15, 18-year relationships of always paying them on time would be good. And what they did was they bled us dry month to month to month. They kept leaving us, deserting us, leading us on. And the workout officers at the banks are excellent at it. I'm not begrudging them. If you borrowed the money, you owe it back. But you have to be very careful, and you can't be afraid to go to war with your banks. With that, I apologize, but we have to take another break. Stick with us, guys. We have a 3-minute break, then we'll be